we have a safety issue on the playground there around the water intake, so we want to put some fence around there. And we really want to make sure we finish the site work, so it's agreement saying, yes, we're going to finish the site work, and so that we can get that fence put in quicker. Then the next one is the trees that we did put on the site plan there. Again, I talked about Silverstone. Again, this is a requirement every, Jen, help me out, 3 years we do GASB 75. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So we highly recommended this group that had done it before. Star equipment is a trailer. We need to hold the lift around between buildings, the hydraulic lift, so the trailer goes down so we can drive it on there. Total quality snow removal contract. Total quality, everybody hands down.
Are we doing the same approach as we used last year? I know that we kind of did a different model.
It's the same one, there's in June, it's the same type of contract.
Yes, exactly.
What was the?
After so many inches and.
Yeah, probably, I mean, but anyway, same.
Quarter, if they remove like main arterials and sidewalks on a quarter inch or half or 3/4 inch, it's the count as a 2 inch snow.
Yeah.
And then after it exceeded a certain amount, then it was a different rate.
Yep, even with that in there,
Yep.
no comparison. And then the last one, wall store, is to get central elementary key, so all of our buildings are on the same key structure.
Okay.
And then get that done.
Is it cheap?
Cheap?
No,
What is
cheap.
cheap?
No.
No. So,
Was that the, yeah, I'm surprised at how expensive that was. Is there other, I mean, are they the only ones that can do it, or did we price out a few?
well, no, because of that patent district-wide. Yeah. Just kind of consistency. Yeah.
Do I have a motion? Any other questions on the consent items? Do I have a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second.
I'm gonna let Diane get in on every, she's gonna get in on every one. I'm gonna let you.
I do it all the time anyway.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Board secretary appointment, administer the oath of office.
You do that to Sarah.
Yeah. You ready for this? Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the board, office of board secretary of the North Polk Community School District as now or hereafter required by law?
Do.
Thank you.
Go. I was a little sad when I read the announcement about Wes. Excited for it at the same time.
Any public comments?
I wanted to say something that, because you had in the communication, the statement of our financials. I just want to say to Dr. Hart and to the administrators that are here, if I'm reading this correctly, good job, because when it compared us to the schools that were our size, we had the lowest spending, but when it compared our student achievement in math, science, and reading, we were the highest. So, good job.
Item number 6, administrator and director reports.
Not too many tonight. Yeah, so we started progress monitoring really last week with our high school teams during that Monday team time. It's going really well. Really just reporting out on student data connected to our 2 building goals. So having teams and teachers report out on their data has been really good, and as we continue through the PLC process. And we're really excited to go to the conference next week. Spent a lot of work kind of prepping for that, and just thanks again to the board and to the district for letting us do that and investing that into our staff. And I think it's going to be really good, having been many times. So I know our staff's really excited about that. We had a successful ALICE drill last Friday. Took some feedback from teachers and students afterwards, and Mr. Sinclair and I went through the student feedback and really just 2 questions. One was, do you feel comfortable with ALICE, sort of the protocol? Almost every student said yes. The second question was, what questions do you have? So we had a lot of similar questions from students about what if this were to happen in this situation or whatnot. So we're looking at how we're going to roll some of those answers back out to students, and then we'll do another drill in the spring. First Principal Council's meeting is tomorrow morning. We have 17 signed up for that, so I'm excited for that. And we next month we'll attend the Heart of Iowa Leadership Academy with the Principal's Council. And then lastly, I just wanted to give a shout out to Reese and Ben, who I know they're not here, but just the activities we've had on campus the last couple weeks. I know the one night we had a home cross-country meet, home junior high football, home volleyball tournament. So really a lot going on, and those guys have done a great job working together, and I know that's been really good for all of our students involved in those fall activities. So shout out to those guys.
Mr. Richards is not here. Morgan?
My first bullet point, we're well through the first part of the first trimester, so we've successfully done that. And outside of that, I just want to touch on our collaboration process. Again, I know you've heard me speak of that before. 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's an all hands on deck approach for our collaboration process to happen between 8 o'clock and 8:35-ish. We're going to work harder on getting people back to classrooms, but this is all of our, Mary smiles at, our related arts people are able to help out and man the classrooms, while our grade level teachers in special ed and our interventionists are able to dig through student achievement data and really make sure that we have sound interventions in place, just to see that all work so well and so smooth, and to see the interventions and to see the data that comes back. It really it gives me goosebumps. My hopes is to capture some of that, and I know you're wanting some board videos. My hopes is to get some of that on camera for you all to see. And I'd love to walk any and all of you through that when the time allows. But just a lot of people working really hard over the right work, and I'm excited for all of our certified staff to go to the PLC conference and leverage that new learning with what we already do, reaffirm the good work, to bring that back, to truly and hopefully see even higher test scores. So I'm just really proud of the work that's going on at Central.
Great, thank you. Corey here tonight?
No. Yeah. Okay.
Your turn.
Yes. Outside of kind of what I reported on, I kind of dropped in what the SAMI, just snapshotted that from our state website. Really kind of encompasses some of that work. Mary Jane and I went and talked literacy with the DCG special ed director, and some of the items that they have put into place, and they've shared some of the things with that work. And I inquired about the SAMI process because that really sets up some of the areas and helps you define where some of your gaps are. And so I know that's another acronym, but it stands for the self-assessment of MTSS, implementations of schools, and that's the multi-tier support systems in place to meet all students' needs. So kind of exploring that and seeing what that could look like as we determine some of those gaps throughout the system. I also dropped in some ISAP information, that's the new state assessment, and some of the timelines with that. They did do an embargo of when districts can release that information, and we're currently having conversations at the district at what that looks like. They're going to be coming out with some sample letters for family communications that districts can put out, and so that information is coming. We've gotten just a little bit at Curriculum Network to really share with what that data is going to look like. It's going to look a lot different than the reports that we've known from the past with Iowa assessments and even ITBS. So there is going to be some shifts there, but we're excited to get that data back and look at it as a system, and then also communicate that out with stakeholders. I also dropped in front of you 2 images that help kind of communicate the PLC process and what collaboration looks like. So this first image, this one here, is that collaboration cycle where it starts with the design, teach, assess, share, reflect, evaluate, and then inquiry. So on Mondays, when we have late starts, teams are gathering in professional learning communities, and that is what that process entails. So I don't know if that helps clarify some of those pieces, but it really we want to put it in terms where any stakeholders can really understand this. A lot of our HRS surveys that we've been looking at, that we will be seeing how we can pull that data in. Teachers, staff, parents, community members need to kind of understand that process well too. So I think that's always a challenge, is to make sense of the stuff that we have here in the district that we're working on and what it looks like. And then this piece here kind of really encompasses the why, the how, and the what of what those collaborative teams encompass. So I'll just have you kind of glance at that. And then on the back, this is just done in Google Draw, and Jess is phenomenal in our office. She's done a lot of fun stuff for us and created some images for us. I'm hoping for her to go at this one a little bit, but this was just done in Google Draw, so it is just pretty basic. But the top two quadrants and then the lower left quadrant encompass the 4 questions of the PLC process, and that kind of breaks it down into the why we do it, how it looks at North Polk, and what it is essentially that we're doing. And then I know that there's been some conversation and discussion around how does PLC and TLC work together, and that bottom quadrant there on the right really brings in what TLC looks like within that overarching process of professional learning communities. So that statement above is, we're trying to get kind of clean on that to really be able to have that as something that we communicate across the system in consistent language to kind of make sense of the whole process. So is there any questions about these items?
So like last Monday,
Yeah.
when the groups are getting together, I get the general thought process, but like is there specific topics that a building is talking about in each of the different groups, or is it that group define what they want to work on for that given? I mean, an hour is not, it's not a lot of time.
So it's kind of like an ongoing process where each team determines kind of what they're working on. They come together, design maybe a lesson, or collaborate with their colleagues, and then based off of where they're at in that collaboration cycle, they might spend a little bit more time talking about that design, and then when they pull back together, they might dive in more into the assessment piece and how they're going to assess it. One powerful thing about the professional learning community concept is we're teaching the same standards. We're working on those essential standards throughout the system, but you still have autonomy as a teacher to go back into your classroom and teach it, and then bring that data back and look at it. And I think that's the piece a lot of systems, as we go through working on our formative assessments and designing those, which is kind of where teams are at and still establishing some of their essential standards, is when we get really good at looking at data, because that's the data that we want to look at and intervene in with, instead of data that's like collected every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, if that makes sense, to ensure that we know if students have it or not.
How many people are going to the PLC conference? How many staff members?
Our entire system's going to go.
How many people?
142.
Okay, great.
And then I reached out to our rep. I'm excited to talk to him about some of the feedback on some of this when I have them in front of us, because they're experts. They also allowed us to bring our student teachers, which is kind of unheard of, that student teachers can come with us, because we have some teachers that are have taken on a student teacher, which is going to be exciting for them. I'm excited for them to be with us as well. So
what's your main goal? Why to go to this conference? Or what main goal is just to going into it? What do you expect to get out of it? Anybody could answer. I'm just, I'm not putting you on the spot because I think it's great. I just want to know what
No, I think it's a great question.
going in, what you guys expect to get out of this conference.
Can I start? You guys keep going.
yeah.
I'm expecting a lot.
Please define a lot for us, Morgan.
It's one thing, like when you, we're blessed that we have great families, great students, great teachers. This process will allow us to work more cohesive and be on the same page, to work in the same system, to leverage even greater growth. When we have great teachers that work on teams that are doing great things, but different things in classrooms, every time we're looking at the kids that fall out, what worked, what didn't work, it's all documented now. We have more our finger on the pulse now than we ever will, and going to this and like reaffirming that work, and they're not hearing it from their principals or their instructional coaches, they're hearing it from experts, and they're hearing from other districts that this is the work that really works. This is the work that moves systems from good to great. So in everything that we do in schools is based on the assumption that there's a sound PLC process, PLC philosophy in place. Everything, the curriculum that we look at, the HRS work that we're in, that's the foundation, is the PLCs. There's quality sound PLC process in place. So to drive this home, to let our staff know that we're about this, North Polk schools are going to be a PLC school, and if you talk to some of us, we're going to be a model school, model district within a few years. This couldn't be more of a solid, strong foundation for us all to go, and for us all to hear it, to be empowered, to bring that energy back, to put that into the work they're already doing, and then just seeing the fruits of the labor.
Do you feel like all staff are on board with the PLC process? Do we still have a few that are non-believers?
I live in a utopian world, so yes, everybody's on board.
I'm sure there's some staff members who maybe haven't bought in 100%. It's hard to go to this conference and not leave totally motivated, and feel energized. And one of the things that I think will be great is usually most teachers go in the summer and you leave and you're fired up, you're jacked up, ready to go, and then school doesn't start for 2.5 months. So we have the chance right here, next week to come back and really, Morgan said this, but to reaffirm the work that we're doing, but also just take us to that next level. And so the four guiding questions of the PLC, number one is what do we want students to learn? And I feel like we're good there. The second is how will we know they have learned it? And that's what really in our building at least we're working on. How do we know students have learned? Are we writing really good assessments? And then to that next step of what will we do if they haven't learned it, and how are we going to extend it for those that have? So those are really the four guiding questions, and I think all the keynotes next week and the breakouts really just, we'll give our staff, like Morgan said, a voice that's not one of us up in front of them talking to them, and also to interact with teachers from all over the state that are in the same process with their own schools. So.
Okay.
And I think just credit to the principals. We've had some time to pull together and really be intentional when they come back that afternoon on Wednesday for them to capture some of their reflection and thoughts related to maybe a nugget that they heard, but not just celebrate that, oh yeah, that was really powerful, but really challenge them to think about what does that look like to move it to action with your team. And so we have set up pretty consistently across the system for the teams to kind of flush some of that out. What are some quick wins that we could do right away? One example being like they're going to be talking about agendas and what that looks like, or team norms and following team norms, and maybe they don't revisit it, but how crucial that is when you pull together as a team. So that might be something that they could refine and talk about right away, and then really get them to flush out some of that thinking so we could really see what that looks like for our system. So we've been really intentional about that, because I think, to answer the question is I want to see some stuff move to action, but I also want to hear that authentically from the people that we're sending. So coming back in November, I'd love to share some of that with you. I'm hoping to catch some video and be able to share that short video out with you too. If you guys want to come over for an afternoon and hear one of the keynotes, they're fabulous. So I could sweet talk our rep and see if we could get somebody in for a day pass or something like that. Yeah, sneak it. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's really quite awesome to see all of that, and then be able to sit at some tables with other systems in the state of Iowa and hearing where are you at in your journey, what have you guys done, and hear some of that. That's just as important as the keynotes, I think.
I'll be watching my kids.
Yeah.
I'd love to attend, but
I
for some
know.
reason they're not in school.
Yeah. Anything else? Anybody else want to add to that?
I just say thank you for allowing us to for this to happen. I mean, to Keith's point too, it's when our students are not in school, it better be pretty important what we're doing, and I couldn't believe more in this process to take our staff there. So thank you for that opportunity.
I guess I have one more question. Where are we at compared to other districts in our PLC process? Are we kind of in the middle, meaning development, implementation, because we've been working on that for a couple of years now. I mean, where are we at, do you think? Fully implemented? Or
No,
just kind of.
We're at the forming and norming stages of that, and we're seeing the benefits and the power when we work together and we work collaboratively and we stick to a process. We're seeing greater good come from that. So to compare, no disrespect, like we're, in my opinion, kind of behind the eight ball on this. PLCs aren't new. It's been around for a long time. Our neighbors around us have, just like us, have been sending pockets of teachers for a long time to this. They believe in the process, but I don't think, and I'm holding myself to this too, I don't think that we've collaboratively leveraged that work and put that into place as well as we have over the years. But this statement for us to go together, I mean, we have to expect the investment in this that we're putting forth. We have to see movement.
Our focus switched a little bit as we started getting to TLC. We want to do that well, and now that's in place. Now bring that PLC back. We're right at that point, ready to move forward.
So any type of action plan that you guys are going to develop, kind of like a time? I mean, I know it's tough to put a timeline on stuff, but maybe a goal at, within the next.
Each one of the buildings will have an action plan around that.
But as far as implementation, what do you like, some milestones as you go?
And I would say, Joe, coming from Carlisle, we were a model PLC there, but it was a 6-year journey to get to that. So kind of give you that step-by-step, 5 or 6 years until maybe fully implemented, functioning at a really high level. But we're well on our way. It's just this is a huge step for sure. And the guaranteed team time every Monday this year has been a huge help. I know. So
Have to continue that. For another board to decide. All right, moving on. Supervisor reports. Anything else before I start? Anything else you guys want to add to it? All right, thank you for what you guys do. All right. June.
Nothing much different than what I put in, but just trying to get all these things in place. A lot of them we're going to try and get done the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. So that way, with those 3 days off, I'm using them to get stuff done in the buildings and around the buildings to get ready for winter and stuff. So.
The tree planting, do we have any guarantees on the trees if they have a winter kill?
We will, since we switched one of the trees that the site plan wanted to a different tree, and that one they
provided the juniper, which is okay by them. Said you can plant either. And the guy recommended the juniper weather is better than the arborvitae, so
he would have warranty.
That was the other thing too. Exactly.
I just, it's kind of a minute point and probably shouldn't talk about it, but it's just, I don't have to go back and replace a bunch of dead trees.
Right.
Yeah, and been told that we need to give them a good soaking, that we're gonna have to water them, soak them really good, and then once it gets cold, they'll be fine. But I mean, we just gotta keep on watering them.
Okay. All right,
So-
okay, thank you.
Hey, in your report, you think the custodians, I guess you're telling us that you make sure to let them know? You share that with them?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that'd be for everybody. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, I think that's wonderful, you know, and just stating, hey, you know, we let the board know how much we appreciate your work and,
Yeah.
good, okay, thank you.
Anything else, Drew?
Oh,
No, that's it. Jess isn't here. Mr. Reeves isn't here. Mr. Blaylock is not here. Mr. Growley.
I don't have much other than we put it in. We just keep hammering away at the things that come in. So we're also, just like Jim, we're going to take the advantage to finish up a couple of projects next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
And those are?
We're going to go in. The biggest thing is to get the speakers into the middle school.
Okay.
While the kids aren't in there, we can get all the speakers in.
Just one thing to add that, and since we have that new trailer, we can transport the lift.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
huge.
right.
Okay.
So,
All right.
big.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson.
Well, my key things are vehicles and staffing. Staffing's going very well. Vehicles are going well now. We had one bus was in the shop for a couple weeks, so we were short there for a little while, but we are fully operational now. That's it.
So to make a comment, the other day was the first time I dropped off at Central. I dropped the boys off at Central, so I hadn't seen the orchestrated event. So pulling the chains out, closing things down. I didn't have quite an appreciation for it until I saw
Good
it.
stuff, isn't it? Well-oiled machine.
I didn't exactly know what to do because I was early, so I couldn't drop it. They're like, no, don't drop us off yet because we'll just have to stand outside. So I just parked and I kind of watched it all unfold. So anyway, well done.
I know we're kind of jumping ahead, but on the school bus passenger restraints,
Yes,
in that code, or not the code, but the policy,
yes,
that won't apply until we buy a new bus, correct? Yeah.
which will be July of next year.
Yeah.
How much did you say it would be to retrofit an existing bus?
It's around $20,000 because you gotta drill holes in the floor and tie all the seat belts down to it.
Was there a grant possibility with that? Is that?
For retrofitting seat belts?
Yeah, is that not right?
Not that I know.
Okay.
No other schools were talking about that. They were all gonna just start buying buses with seat belts. I don't remember, we're the 6th state or 7th state, something like that. There's about 4 or 5 other states that are a couple years ahead of us.
And that adds what, I think you said for what, $8
to 10
$10,000
Yes,
per bus, right?
per new bus, yes.
But I'm wondering if we should, you know, at least have it kind of in our mind for some of the newer
Some of
buses
the-
that
yeah,
aren't
that's what I was kinda-
retrofitted with how long they're gonna be in service,
Mhm.
about potentially having a plan, if money comes available, that we could potentially do that.
Because we have, what, 2 or 3 newer buses, right? I think we probably bought one.
We get one every year.
One each year, so the last course we got. That's a good point.
How many years do we generally own them for?
Ideally 15, but my oldest bus right now is a 93.
So
I have about
26.
5 and it's on your report, mileage report, what year the buses are.
Yeah.
You can just say for that, right? You make a note of that, Mike.
I missed it.
You did? Make a note of that. It's maybe
Start retrofitting.
start retrofitting.
Retrofitting.
We'll have to, obviously get board approval, but just find with Potter on that, we can't wait
We can get a plan as far as,
20 years down the road and finally got them all seatbelts.
I was gonna say, what's the, I guess the procedural question then is, are kids forced to wear?
Yeah, how do we enforce that they
Once they're
wear
on the
them?
bus?
I know it.
Wow.
Oh.
It's because I sat by it the other night, that's what it was.
Everybody up.
I believe what the other Des Moines' been buying them for a few years. What they do is if they see a student standing up or changing seats, they obviously know that they're not wearing a seatbelt. The bus driver can't walk up and down the aisle like a stewardess on an airplane. But if they see them standing up or something like that, they can immediately write that student a ticket for not having their seatbelt on. Parents seem to be a lot more behind it.
I can see my fifth graders thinking that this doesn't apply to them. So, but I guess I'd be curious if there's like adoption studies or people, obviously this is with the changes. I mean, it's something that's going to happen, and there's probably enough research behind it. But I guess I'm curious now for those districts that have made the change, if there is utilization, if anybody's looked at effectiveness of it, or not effectiveness of the actual restraints in an accident, but in the participation of kids, or if they've had to adjust procedures to.
What little they've told me, I'm not an expert in this, is that the students are used to buckling up in their own vehicles, and so when their seatbelt's on there, they click it pretty easy. What I've heard from other transportation directors is drivers fight over the bus that has the seatbelt on it. Not because they're new buses, but because when the kids put it on there, they are restrained to one seat instead of, they have the choice right now of, they're very social and they want to get out in the aisles and talk with their friends. When they're buckled in, they behave a lot more and they don't try to stand up. And I've heard that bullying and things like that, picking on people on buses, have almost disappeared when their seatbelts on. So in my mind, I would choose my bus routes that have the most student issues to put the bus seatbelts on first, to try to start curbing that. And my principals will like that because they'll have less character issues and camera checks for me to run to see what little Billy did last night.
It's just another part of the sales pitch, and now I'm definitely sold.
That's what sold me.
If we retrofit or we look into that, can we look into seeing if there's any sort of insurance reductions in
Sure.
premiums and
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Okay. But I think from over a 10-year period, just having reduced student issues for the principals to look into is going to be worth the investment of putting seatbelts on. Plus the safety issues, but even beyond that, just the character issues get a lot better on buses.
Great, okay. Yeah, sorry for jumping ahead like that, but I just had that question since you were here.
Okay.
I had one quick question for Dan. Did we have a chance to put that title change discussion on the agenda or no?
No, I didn't hear back from anyone. We can discuss it later.
We can?
Sure.
Okay.
New business, moving on, 8th grade music trip.
Letter in there from.
I think it's a good idea.
Something we do every year, right?
Yes.
And last year they got rained out though, right? Or was it 2 years ago?
I think it was 2. I don't know. I think it was 2.
Last year.
Last year, 2 years ago. Yeah.
That's great, I like that.
Where does that, I was curious, where's the revenue come for that, or to pay for that?
Students pay for theirs, and there's some also fundraising they do to pay for all of that. There's it all paid for that. There's some, Mary,
They
you know,
used to
middle school.
do some offsetting of it.
There's some
didn't they?
offsetting,
I
yeah.
mean, way back when. I mean, fundraiser type,
That's what I was wondering, like the senior trip kind of.
fundraiser type. I don't know, Mr. Groudon, do you know?
What's that? I'm sorry. I was being distracted over here. What's that?
Harking back to your
Yeah.
chorus band days.
Yes.
Do you know if there's fundraisers and stuff for the middle school trip?
There is. The middle school sells. They sold the. We just turned it in. So it's a 6, 7, 8, and I believe I don't want to speak completely out of turn, but I believe that the deal is that half of the funds go towards the 8th grade trip, and the other half goes towards music boosters, so that So sixth, seventh, and eighth graders are always fundraising every year for that eighth grade trip, but also for the boosters, and the boosters take a lot of that money. Right now, they have a whole fund that they've diverted, for example, for lights, for the stage, for the middle school and stuff like that. So it's kind of a half and half, and I can't remember, we just did it. I just put money in, it was like kind of a pledge kind of thing, it was kind of like an fundraiser. They didn't sell anything, it was kind of an unfundraiser, I can't remember exactly now. It might have been something about how many times they practiced or something, I can't remember.
Do I have a motion to approve the music trip?
Second.
Keith, all in favor?
Aye.
Work policy updates, final readings updated due to legislation changes.
So 203, 210.6 to 11, 501.5, 505.5, 711.7, 711.10 are all changes due to legislation. So those can be passed with a final reading because of the legal piece that has to be done.
So as far as the changes, for example, in 505, so there was new legislation that required update to this?
Yes.
So the version you had out there is the new modified version?
With the bold piece is the difference. Any of those. These are bold sentences. Fine. Which one are you looking at? Fine.
Beginning with the class of 2022.
Yeah,
that
on the
one.
bottom there.
That's why I was confused.
Oh, yeah. You were looking at Dropbox right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I just pulled this morning. Or
What are you looking at?
505.5, the graduation requirements. I was curious what the.
Yeah.
That was just in there today.
I'm looking at it right now.
What's the?
Today at 9:30 a.m. by Janet Hartley.
Yeah, that's, sorry, Dan. That's me.
Okay.
That was me, sorry.
Oh, so
Janet.
that one did change. Okay, it did change.
Because the one I kept, every time I clicked on it, had the wrong, I kept clicking, it had the 50 something.
Okay.
So I apologize.
Okay, I'm gonna look at what's in there.
It had mine has the original one in there, not that.
Not the
The
one
one pager.
Okay, so let's put there. So that's in there. Has, do you have this on there? In Dropbox, beginning of class of 2022?
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, it's in the whole. Yeah.
Okay.
Should we table that one so we're clear on it, or should we just check them really quick?
Put it in that, this is the one that's clear, this has to be in your policy, so. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that.
I have the wrong document.
At least I understand why I was confused now.
Yeah.
So we're good on that then? Okay. All right.
Since we're on it, do you mind explaining what it
What
means?
yeah, that one means?
Yeah.
So again, with the new requirements, if you look above where the stricken part, a student used to be able to graduate in just based on their IEP, that no longer is legal. They have to have the 4-3-3-3, so 4 credits of English language arts, 3 math, 3 social studies, 3 science. So that's what that is putting in there.
So maybe I'm looking at the right one, maybe I'm not. Is this,
I can tell you if you are or you aren't. That's one I put in there. 'Cause I didn't see the strike through on the one that I emailed you about today.
Yeah. So this is, let me see.
Well, that's why I'm saying if we want to make sure that everybody's reading the right document. So
well,
this is
I mean, it's
what did.
required though.
I know,
I mean, we're
yeah,
not gonna be
but-
able to change it, so
Yeah.
get our heads around it.
But this is where we have to make some adjustments for those special ed kids
Right.
that aren't gonna be able
We'll
to
take
take.
this part in there, but Seth also wants to take a look at this when we get ready to do handbook for the end of the year. So we'll probably will revisit this policy, but we need to get that legal part in there for now.
So what's the difference, just teach me, what's the difference between a traditional and a basic diploma?
So more credits are required with that traditional one.
What does it get them?
So the non-traditional one is more for a student who needs to be done sooner.
The only difference in credits was in electives.
Right.
correct?
Yeah, they got their core done, but didn't have as many elective requirements.
But they still have the aid English,
Correct.
I mean, so from a college entrance or anything like that, it's a diploma.
It's a diploma.
Okay.
I think we should revisit the quorum part, and the quorum, so my counterparts know exactly what.
Where you get stressed all the time.
Credit?
No, no. Any questions on any other board on policies? Do I have
So moved.
motion to approve C, the final readings? 203 Board of Directors, 210.6 quorum, 211 open meetings, 501.5 attendance center assignment, 505.5 graduation requirements, 711.7 school bus safety instruction, 711.10 school bus passenger restraints. Motion to approve those.
So
On
moved.
reading. Dan,
Second.
Jane, on board tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, D, first readings, present policy had the positions combined. 206.3 secretary.
So now that we've separated secretary treasurer, now we'll just separate the policies. And so it just took one, cut it to two. No material change. So because of that, you have the right to also waive the final, or waive second reading, make it the final as well. So it goes into effect immediately.
I move to accept them as the final reading.
Motion. Do I have a second? To the one reading? Second. Dave, all in favor? Aye. I vote. Okay. E, closed session, Iowa Code 21.51J, real estate. Motion. Closed session.
Can I just draw special attention to two central teachers that are here that I feel should not acknowledge earlier? Mary Schmelzer, our general music. Okay. Kristen Newell, our academic interventionist. She's also studying to become an administrator as well.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the conference.
Yes,
Thank you.
Travis Davis, also running for school board sitting here.
Thanks for coming.
Lots for Diane, the last time.
Oh, I'm so
sorry.
What's that?
Lots of fun here.
Still gonna do it?
Yes.
I've seen worse.
Did you find anything more complicated?
Yeah, look at that. Well, you put it back on Dad's computer, that was easy.
Whatever happened to the new Mike Campbell little cassette recorder?
Yeah, I have this one, it's got like two
Thank you,
buttons,
Travis.
record and then on off.
Have a good night, guys.
Yep, thank you, Seth.
Yep, thanks, guys.
See ya.
Scott says he needs me for a minute, so.
Because you have two closed sessions, yes?
Yes.
So the second closed session, you just pop, you just push that in, it comes out. And then you just put this back in.
You're gonna put your computer science degree to good use there, Janet.
There you go. When it's in, it's not getting recorded. Right. Does that make sense?
This is just when we're
Oh,
done.
just
This is
stop.
when we're
Stop.
done.
Off, you go back down, and it turns off.
What did you talk about?
They make digital cassette recorders, okay.
It's not good?
Oh, no, that's okay.
It's okay.
As long as it's stopped.
It's okay.
As long as it's stopped. Okay?
Sure. So we have two separate discs.
Just gave you like Santa Claus today. See you tomorrow.
Is it on?
Make sure you turn that camera on.
I am right now.